Live from the KHON2 News Studio, this is Hawaii's Debate.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us for Hawaii's Debate, featuring the candidates for governor, Democrat David Ige, and Republican Andrea Tupola, and the lieutenant governor candidates, Democrat Josh Green and Republican Marissa Kearns. Let's start by going over the format. We'll start with a round of questions developed by the KHON2 News team, followed by questions sent in by our viewers. For each of these questions, the candidates will have 45 seconds for a response. The candidates will also have a chance to question each other at 2 points during this forum. We'll also break from the questioning of the gubernatorial candidates to hear from the lieutenant governor candidates. Howard Deshefsky will present the questions for that portion of the debate, and he'll go over those rules when we get to that point. At the conclusion of the forum, each candidate will have 1 minute for closing remarks. I'll be ensuring that timekeeping is strictly adhered to. A yellow light visible to both candidates is in the studio, and that will flash at the 15-second mark. A red light will flash when the time is expired, at which point the candidate will be permitted to finish his or her sentence. Now tonight, it's my pleasure to introduce the candidates, Democrat Governor David Ige and Republican Representative Andrea Tupola. Candidates, good evening and welcome.
Aloha.
Good evening.
Thank you for being here. The order of tonight's forum has been decided in advance by a coin flip, and we'll get right to the questions. Hawaii's high cost of living has had an impact on many of our residents, from the state's economy, from housing prices to wages to groceries, and that affects hundreds of thousands of working families. Give us specific examples of your policies and plans that will benefit local families trying to make ends meet. Governor Ige is first to respond.
You know, I've been focused on reducing the cost of living by reducing the cost of education. You know, I'm proud of our efforts for early college, which allows every high school student to be able to take courses and get college credit and high school credit at the same time. You know, we had the first cohort of students who finished the early college program, and they actually graduated with their Associate of Arts degree before they graduated from high school. And this really allows them to save their family from $8,000 to $10,000 by not having to pay tuition. We've also started the Hawaii's Promise program, which eliminates the cost of going from preventing students from beginning community colleges.
We need to have real talk about the taxes in our state. The reality is that we're the second highest tax state in the nation. Sometimes we hit the first. We have the GE tax, TAT tax, income tax. Right now, we definitely need to address the fact that the GE tax is put on food and medicine. We've been proposing this every year since I've been a legislator. We're only one of 7 states that taxes groceries. Something as simple as groceries and medicine, but yet it is essential for every family across the state of Hawaii. In order for us to really address the cost of living, we have to talk about decreasing taxes, and we need to talk about building an adequate amount of affordable homes.
Thank you. The next question. Hawaii has a reputation as being one of the worst states for business owners, from taxation to healthcare costs to regulations. There are many reasons that are listed. What can you do to improve the business climate? Representative Tupola first.
It's very important for us to talk about our long permitting time. We are the longest in the nation, sometimes during up to 17 months. And for some businesses, this costs people their jobs, and it also costs them work. Decreasing the permitting is what we've approached every year in the legislature. Propose ways that we can cut it. Secondly, we need to talk about helping more local businesses take back their market share, helping those entrepreneurs build those shared spaces. One of the best examples of this is the local development of a Honda Marketplace, which actually houses many local businesses under one roof and helps to save them costs. These are only 2 of the small things we can do, but if we actually gather and become advocates of these businesses, that's what drives Hawaii, our local businesses, and they feel voiceless right now, and that's why they're worse in the state. We can't afford another 4 years of the current direction.
Governor Ige.
Certainly, you know, we have been promoting the notion of creating an innovation and an entrepreneurship economy, really focused on investing in our University of Hawaii. As we transform our economy, we know that the university has to be a key part of that. You know, unemployment is the lowest in the country. We're at 2% historic low all across the country, and it really is about transforming our economy. The university's cancer center can be a leading institution in the country, and we need to support entrepreneurship and innovation in our university to create the jobs of the future.
Thank you. One of the hotly debated issues on the ballot this year is the constitutional amendment that allows for a property tax to help fund education. Do you support this amendment, and why or why not? Governor Ige is first.
Yes, I support this amendment because we've seen year after year about the needs of our public education system that cannot be funded with the funds that we have. You know, Hawaii is the only state in the country where $0, not a single penny of property taxes goes to our public schools. This constitutional amendment is a simple question on the ballot about whether income and investment properties should be taxed and the proceeds go to improve public education. I really believe that the residents in our community have the option for choosing whether they want to support improved public education.
Thank you. Representative Tupola.
I'm against raising taxes. You know, your first question talked about the cost of living, and any increase in taxes is going to affect the cost of living. You know, the definition of investment properties is still ambiguous. There could be investment properties for local businesses. We could have local families doing rentals in these investment properties or local businesses. And so when we talk about investment, you got to realize as well that only the counties do property taxation. We talked about in the legislature that by doing this, we may or may not have to erect a whole new department, which could take away from the potential funding. The second part is, where is educational purposes? Will this money go to teacher salaries? Will it go to the weighted student formula? Or will it go to the administration that we need to audit and then apply an audit? I'm committed to being the governor that actually audits the DOE and makes those dollars more efficient so that we don't have to tax the people, but that more dollars go straight to the classrooms and to the students.
Thank you. If the amendment passes, legislators must still craft a bill that adds the tax to fund this education. Will you pledge to ensure that any funding is, in fact, additional funding and not a replacement for a portion of existing state money already budgeted for schools, if it passes? Andrea.
I am committed to making sure that this money goes straight to the students, the weighted student formula or teacher salaries. This is what impacts the classroom. We cannot have any additional dollars going towards the administration or even to the general fund.
Governor Ige.
Certainly, if I have the privilege of serving as governor another term, I guarantee you that I would veto any measure that increase the property taxes for residents, that does not guarantee that any revenue generated from this property tax would be in addition to what's there and would be guaranteed to go to teachers, students, and the classroom. And finally, we will make sure that none of the taxes get increased on affordable rentals. You know, we clearly are focused on creating affordable rentals. And so certainly all of the concerns raised by those advocating a no, I guarantee you will not occur if I'm governor.
We do have some time for follow-up on this same topic, so let's stick with it, and we'll do about a 30-second time as for this follow-up. And we'll go in the same direction to the first answer. How would you, again, if this amendment were to pass, strictly define what constitutes an investment property, or in a case, an affordable rental property for some kind of protection? And how would you make that sure that that would survive through, whether it was the veto process or make it through the legislative process as you intend it to be defined? Start.
Well, we definitely would have to work closely with the counties. As you know, their expertise is in property taxation. So in order for us to define the TMKs, define the actual property owners, we're going to have to make sure that these are foreign or outside investors, and we're going to have to make sure that the properties that are labeled investment are not housing local families, not local rentals, and not local businesses. So this process would take some time, but working hand in hand with the counties, it's possible, since they have more data than the state, definitely.
And then Governor Ige.
Certainly, we would be able to tell because the homeowner exemption is only available for those homeowners who live in their properties, and clearly that would be a delineation of whether it's their home or that it's out for investment properties. Again, I think the intent was to focus on income properties, so second homes that are being vacation rentals or other income-generating properties over $1 million, and clearly there would be an exemption that affordable rentals would not be included for increased fees.
Thank you both. Now, at this point, we'll transition to the questions from our viewers. These questions were received by email, on Facebook, and some even on the streets of Honolulu. The first, on the topic of schools, comes by video.
I want to know when all the public schools are going to have AC.
All right, Governor Ige.
You know, as you know, I'm the first governor to really make a priority of improving the environment in our public schools. You know, I promised the school to cool 1,000 classrooms all across the state, and we actually completed more than 1,300 classrooms. You know, I continue to advocate for additional funds for air conditioning in our public schools. You know, we are also looking at the GEMS funds to augment any general obligation bonds that we have. So I will continue to advocate and hopefully we will be able to complete air conditioning within 5 to 10 years.
You know, I think we could do more. Personally, when I heard about the amount of money that was spent and how few units were bought, how many few classrooms were cooled, I think we really need to take steps towards being more effective with the dollars that we invest in our classrooms. I think committing to actually cool down all the classrooms is not a hard task, especially as some may need different types of cooling systems, whether it's white on the roofs, whether it's a better fan system. And so I think that the student's correct. We should work on doing them all, and I'm committed to doing that.
Thank you very much. Our next question comes from Wilma Flint, who asks, would you consider bringing back the super ferry or a similar form of transportation for islanders? Representative Tapola.
Yes, I think that we desperately need another form of transportation. The cost of airfare is definitely going up, seeing as though we have less inter-island flights. And I think specifically in regards to the super ferry, you know, making sure that there's a better business and financial model. Most ferry systems across the United States need a fair amount of federal subsidies to keep it going. And that's what we needed to do is, one, a better business plan, two, make sure that things were actually correct during the EIS process, and three, making sure that we have enough of those federal subsidies through the Department of Transportation harbors as we have a marine highway within our state.
Thank you. Governor.
Absolutely. We are in the process of doing a better economic study as we speak. I had designated and got approval from the federal marine highway system to declare the transit routes between the islands as a federal marine highway, which is the first step to allow us to get access to a federal subsidy. Andrea is absolutely right. When you look at the economics of a super ferry program, it cannot be economically viable on its own. And we will pursue getting a federal subsidy to support a super ferry in between the islands. I think most importantly, we need to ensure that we do the environmental studies to make sure that it does not impact our environment.
Thank you. Our next viewer question comes from Lisa Anderson, who asks, due to the significant increase in accidents this year, what will you do to make our state roads and highways safer on Oahu from impatient and inattentive drivers and pedestrians? And how will you go about doing this? Governor Ige, you're first.
I have promoted pedestrian safety and safety on our highways as a #1 priority. We are actually taking a portion of the highway funds and investing it in the Complete Streets model to make sure that we can make our roadways and highways as safe as possible. We have a very active pedestrian safety campaign. You know, we've even engaged the Girl Scouts, and they do mentoring and educational programs all across the community to talk about pedestrian safety and remind pedestrians as well as drivers to keep attentive, stop being on your cell phones, whether you're a pedestrian or a driver, and be safe wherever you go.
Thank you. Representative.
You know, the reality is that our state highways are way too dangerous in rural areas. We actually had another fatality just a few weeks ago in Waianae. And this is because the state has remained unresponsive in lighting these crosswalks. We have 26 unsignalized crosswalks across Waianae, and we made a program to actually utilize pedestrian flags. However, this was an interim because we are waiting for the state to actually do what we need, which is light these crosswalks. And across the North Shore, as well as in some of the rural areas on this island and other islands, people are asking that the state be more responsive, that if there is a fatality, then immediately address it. I have been part of their campaign, and I think that what they do for advocacy is great, but I do think that we need to step up our game in making sure these crosswalks are lit and safe, and I'm committed to doing that.
Thank you. That wraps up the first set of questions. We're going to move on now to the portion of the debate where the candidates get to ask each other a question. No longer than 30 seconds to ask. Representative Topola, you have the first question, and then Governor Ige, you have 60 seconds to respond, and then Ms. Topola, you have 30 seconds to rebut. Your question.
So Governor Abercrombie and the Star Advertiser both had confusing numbers about how much affordable housing was built, somewhere between 2,000 to 3,000 affordable homes. And DHHL would probably be one of the best agencies to help out with that. But I wanted to know personally how many homes were built for DHHL last year, and how many people of the 44,000 applicants can intend to get a lease from the Department of Hawaiian Homelands within the next 4 years?
Well, thank you very much for that question. I'm very committed to restoring beneficiaries to the lands as required by the Department of Hawaiian Homelands. We have appropriated $25.1 million in operating funds, the highest operating budget ever in the history of the department, which allows us to create the staff so that we can implement the programs that can move forward and get the job done. We completed and awarded 292 lots to the beneficiaries, and we have more than 370 in the pipeline for next year. We have been focused on constructing housing. We've completed 5,300 housing units since I've become governor. More than 3,000 of them are affordable. And within that context, 292 are for Hawaiian homesteads.
The fact of the matter is that with 27,000 people on the list, that is simply not enough leases to give out. Last year, no new homes were given. Yes, leases were given out, but it's very alarming to know that the current committed percentage of houses that's being built that are affordable is only 40%. We're in a housing crisis right now, and I believe the state needs to approach it as a crisis and actually raise the goal of affordable homes, because otherwise, families will have to leave Hawaii or become homeless.
Thank you. Governor Ige, your question for Representative.
Sure. Andrea, you replaced Representative Beth Fukumoto as minority leader in the House because she criticized President Trump. Are there any policies that you disagree with President Trump on?
We've had differences on various implementations of it. And as you know, the president doesn't make decisions by himself. There's a legislature, there's a Senate, there's a Congress that balances those decisions. And Representative Fukumoto's incident was not due to that. It was due to the fact that we wanted to have clear leadership in where we were going as a caucus. To me, it was very, very important that we have a balanced two-party system and that we find ways, even when we disagree, to find ways forward. And so I'm committed, because we can't always choose who we work with, but we can always choose how we work with them. So even in the disagreements that I've had with the legislators or with the federal government, I'm committed to always finding paths forward so that the people of Hawaii can benefit from my decisions.
Your rebuttal, if you choose.
Certainly. The difference between myself and Andrea is that I disagree with Trump's policies on immigration, on affordable health care, on women's reproductive rights, because I believe that they are contrary to the values that we share in our communities. I've chosen to challenge the president in each of these areas because I believe it's fundamentally important that we express our values that we share here in Hawaii.
Thank you. This is the final question for the first half of the debate. There's been some conflict in recent years between the governor and lieutenant governor, both those in office and the candidates. As governor, how do you see your role for who is your lieutenant governor, and how do you plan to facilitate the relationship? Representative Topola.
Well, I think that it's absolutely necessary to have a lieutenant governor that challenges my thought. I think that it's great to have a partner who's going to make me even a stronger leader than I am. I also think it's important to hear all voices, to not silence the lieutenant governor, but utilize that input to make Hawaii a better place. And I'm proud to say that our ticket has 2 strong minority women.
Thank you. Governor Ige.
Certainly. You know, I believe that the lieutenant governor should be part of the leadership team and participate in our cabinet meetings where we have the most heated discussions about how to move forward on the most important issues. You know, I would look at Josh and look to his areas of expertise and his passion for the issues that he cares most about. You know, I do know that he wants to be involved in homelessness, and I would welcome his participation in that. His innovative idea for a hygiene center in Chinatown is something that we will be working together for. And as a physician, he has been very active in helping to solve the physician shortage all across the state.
Thank you. And with those thoughts in mind, we're going to transition over to the lieutenant governor candidates who are standing by with Howard Deshefsky. Howard?
Howdy, Gina. Thank you very much. Yeah, we're back here in Studio B, and I'd like to introduce our 2 candidates that are going to be vying for the position of lieutenant governor. First, Senator Josh Green, an emergency room doctor, and Marissa Kearns, who is a small businesswoman and owner. So you both bring 2 very unique skill sets to this office and an opportunity to do a lot with that. So my first question that I have, which kind of bounces off what you just heard them say, first of all, I will be posing these questions. Similarly, 30 seconds to answer. You'll see a red light. When you see it, you don't have to stop on the dime, but we ask that you finish that sentence, and then we'll move on from there. So the first question, again, bouncing off what we just heard from the candidates for governor, is although you are all very soul-minded in your priorities of what you want to do in the role of lieutenant governor, tell our viewers how you see your role in the administration, and will you ultimately pledge to work in unity with the governor? And Senator Green, you are first to answer.
Thank you, Dash. I've had the honor of working with Governor Ige on many occasions. We served for 6 years together as senators. Together, we worked on legislation to make sure every child has health care insurance, to work on the autism coverage issue, to work on homelessness. And he's embraced me as a part of his team right from the get-go, has asked me to participate on the solution for homelessness, which I will take personal ownership of. I'll continue to be a physician and be a complement to his team in every way, as a neighbor islander, as a friend, as a physician, and really as a legislative and executive partner.
Ms. Kern?
To me, I will be working hard with Andrea, because we're both women. We're very strong women, very competitive, you know, result-oriented women. And for sure, me, I want the housing. We got big-time crisis, disaster in our housing. I would like Andrea to push all the legislators to pretty much assign thousands and thousands of acres every islands. We need to do that. We need to expeditiously put the land for the people, especially the low income, the young families, the disabled, the veterans, and the Hawaiians. They're dying. We need to pass forward to give them the zoning, the permitting, and put those high rises, whatever it is, or any kind of mode of housing. It could be RVs, whatever it is.
All right. Our second question is, and again, you bring some very unique skill sets. What is the single largest issue, or if you have 2 primary chunks that you want to really tackle if elected to serve, what would be the 1 or maybe 2 primary issues that you would really want to tackle? We begin with you, Ms. Kearns.
Well, of course, I'm the only one, the candidate, because apparently, fortunately, I'm a business owner. I want to stop the rail. The rail is too much. It's bankrupt. We need to audit the rail. We don't have no money to continue that. They should have stopped that from the get-go. They did not do that. They keep taxing our people. Now what? Where's the transportation? We're a gridlock. Legislature a gridlock. You know, I cannot support any of this. The second one, again, is the housing. We need to designate thousands and thousands of acres, because Iggy giving away to those, you know, I heard in the Big Island, he gave away like 160 acres to gold developers. Thousands of island, you know, I don't know, acres, I would say. And we need to stop him. We need to stop him, because people are leaving the islands. Those are our taxpayers leaving us.
All right. Ms. Green.
So my background is as a physician, as you know. I've spent my whole adult life taking care of Hawaii families in the hospitals and clinics across our state. And from that perspective, I've seen how the crisis of addiction has affected our families. I'd like to take up solutions on addiction across all families, all economic parts of our state, and that blends right into our homeless crisis. Our chronic homeless situation usually revolves around people who suffer from addiction and mental illness. So by taking on those two areas where I have a lot of personal experience by working in the trenches, I think I can be a great addition to our state and our state government in a partnership with Governor Ige.
All right, my third question is, I want to know your position, and this is something that we heard from the governors too, your position on the constitutional amendment for education. Do you support that amendment that will be going on that ballot? This is the one about taxing the properties to fund education.
First of all, I'm a business owner. I work so hard to have my home. Me and my husband work so hard in our children. A lot of people work so hard as well. They got to buy second home, third homes. You know what? They earned it. We shouldn't be taxing those people. Not everybody would like to work that hard, you know, but taxing them again and again and again, it's not good. We're a hell tax state already. We got to stop that. And again, the teachers just had their 14% pay raise. What do we need the education for? Both of my kids went to Kapolei High School. When my son graduated in 2014, the competency, the aptitude competency of mathematics in the high school, all the leeward side, was just 45%. Now my daughter graduated this May. Became like what, 25%? And we're like on the bottom, 43rd in the nation in our education.
Okay, need to stop you there. Mr. Green.
Thank you. I think we need to bring more resources to our teachers in our classrooms. That's why I've supported this amendment. We've watched for many years inadequate funding, as Governor pointed out very, very intelligently. Too little funds have gone to our students in our classrooms, in spite of the fact that Governor and I have fought for that for years. So this is an opportunity, because I trust the people, for them to make a decision. That's where I stand. I think we always have to support our teachers.
Okay, before I send it back to Gina Mangieri, I want to circle back to one of the issues that you brought up. This is the biggest public works issue in the state that we've ever seen. That is rail. You said you want to put a stop. You've requested the federal government provide no more funds. In very quickly, 15 seconds, what do you want to see? Do you want to tear it down? What do you want to do with what's already happened?
I want to completely privatize the rail. I want the taxpayer out of that rail boondoggle. And the other ways too is to, would say, recycle it. You know, we have a local company that recycle, you know, cement. It's cheaper. It's cheaper to just cut it off, hold the pylons. You know, the rest of them, maybe we should throw it to the ocean. We got the deepest ocean in the Pacific.
Your position on rail?
Oh, it's disappointing for me to hear my opponent suggest that we would throw all that money, time, resource away. We have to support people's jobs. We have to support solutions on traffic. We got to finish the rail.
All right, Ms. Kearns, Dr. Green, thank you very much. We're going to come back to you at the end for some more questions and some final thoughts. For now, Gina, we're going to send it back to you in Studio A, where you can continue your discussion with the candidates for governor.
Thank you, Howard. So the next questions, we hear a lot about the homeless problem across the state. What do you think can be done to help the chronically homeless and specifically tackle the mental health issues that many of these people are suffering from? And again, on these, you have 45 seconds each to respond. And Governor Ige, you're first.
We know that there is no quick fix to homelessness. It really is an issue that all of us in the community have to get together. All of the state, county, federal agencies, the providers, service providers, and the general public to find solutions that work. We have been focused on housing first, which is really about ensuring that we can take homeless individuals, bring them in, provide them mental health and substance abuse services if they need it, and then place them into permanent supportive housing. You know, we have supported initiatives like the Family Assessment Center, which has been successful 90% of the time of taking homeless individuals and placing them in permanent housing in 90 days.
Thank you. Representative.
You know, the first thing we need to do with our homeless crisis is that we need to accurately count the amount of homeless that we have. The point-in-time count is actually a voluntary count that people do across the state, and it's for federal funding. So we don't necessarily have to do it once a year. We could do it all year round. And we also have those hidden homeless, people who are living in multiple families in one house, as well as people living in their cars. We need to start off our actual plan for homelessness by knowing the accurate number. Secondly, we need to start to think about community-minded solutions. Every community is different, has different resources, and each community is very unique. Right now, we're trying to use a one-size-fits-all solution, and only certain areas are actually being impacted by some of these solutions, whereas in the EVA and the Waianae side of the island, our numbers increased.
Thank you. Now, for the past year, the Me Too movement has sparked a nationwide discussion. Add to that to the direction of the Supreme Court, which could swing toward matters of reproductive rights, educational fairness, even equal pay. What does your administration plan to do to protect women's rights? Representative Topola.
I plan to uphold the laws that are on the books right now. Our state gives rights to women, and this is what our state has had for years. What we need to do is ensure that we have adequate funding for our health services. The current administration denied $2 million of funding for essential community health centers, and we need to make sure that despite our differences that we still fight for that federal funding, because our local families need help. These community centers need all the dollars that they can get. Empowering women is one of my favorite things to do. I actually organize a yearly domestic violence awareness conference, and I organize 2 statewide sex trafficking conferences, because these are very important issues of empowering women. And if you want to see more in women empowerment, I would suggest that you vote for a ticket.
Thank you. Governor Ige?
I just wanted to correct Andrea. What I had committed to is that I am not going to allow the federal government, the Trump administration, to hold the women of Hawaii hostage by putting in a gag order that prevents complete, comprehensive information for being shared. I'm committed to finding state dollars if necessary, if the federal government enforces that gag order, because I believe in women's rights, and especially women's reproductive rights. You know, we have been challenging the Trump administration in their archaic policies, and we will continue to do that. You know, we have increased funding to implement Title IX. We are committed to equal rights for women, and I've been endorsed by Planned Parenthood because of my positions on women's rights.
Thank you. Let's spend a little extra time there on that topic of various policies that are coming out of Washington, regardless of which party is in power. A president will do what a president will do. Are there items, and Governor, you've already mentioned one, that you can live with that the Trump administration is implementing, and those you absolutely cannot stomach and will be trying to fight? And we'll have the same question for you, Mr. Pola, as well. Things that are coming down right now from the White House you can live with, and things that you will stand to fight. Let's do about 30 seconds on this one.
Absolutely. You know, I'm proud of my administration's efforts to work with the Trump administration on emergency management. Every time we've been threatened by a natural disaster, I've called to the White House, and we've been able to turn around presidential disaster declarations in record time. I see no politics in keeping our communities safe and secure. You know, and I've gone on record challenging Trump on immigration, affordable health care, and other programs, because I believe that it doesn't align with the values of Hawaii.
Okay, great. And Mr. Pola, things you can live with and things that you would fight the Trump administration on.
You know, I think that the governor's earlier comment about, you know, fighting these policies because of a personality difference, you know, unfortunately in politics, you're never going to get along with everyone. But at the end of the day, I would hope that we would fight for every dollar that our state needs. And that if there needs to be a congressional fight, that the governor would support the Congress as well as our U.S. senators to fight for those issues. That's why they're there. So I think that for us to focus on the issues of Hawaii, that's what we're actually elected to do, is to make sure that we have local funding for our education, for our health care, and for our infrastructure.
And that's supporting something that the administration was coming at. Is there anything you would oppose the Trump administration on?
If it had to harm Hawaii, or if it took Native Hawaiian dollars or affected some of our rights, I would definitely oppose those.
Thank you. Researchers across the state are looking at climate change in Hawaii and the effect that it may have on sea levels and infrastructure. Some areas are already dealing with the impact of severe erosion. How do you plan to protect our roads and our infrastructure, particularly for the future? Governor Ige.
We formed the Climate Adaptation Commission that is looking at taking all of the state agencies and county agencies to look at climate change and sea level rise and begin the conversation about what changes we have to make in policies moving forward. As you know, there has been severe erosion along the North Shore, and we've had conversations with the state and the county about what should the policy be going forward. You know, these homes were built on sand, and during high tides and storm surf, the sand is being washed away. We committed that we would be together and that we would not allow hardening of our shorelines because it impacts the natural breaks of the North Shore.
Thank you very much. Representative.
You know, unfortunately, we have to actually take action already. As you know, some of these roads are already falling in, and the solutions are very much a Band-Aid solution. Granted, the conversations need to be had, but these have been issues for years. And so I think taking a real look at how we access federal dollars and then how we spend them down for Department of Highways, this has been an issue over the years. We need to absolutely ask for more and then use them immediately in these areas where the roads are already falling in.
Thank you. All right, as voters head to the polls to make their decision, can you each share one big idea that you have for the state? An idea that will put Hawaii on the map, so to speak, for something other than being tops in tourism. Share with your voters your most innovative idea for the future of Hawaii. Representative.
You know, I think that actually taking a harder look at how we handle these houseless, homeless, and affordable housing issue. I think that we could make marked progress if we actually looked to other Polynesian nations that have been going through this very issue. This is not new. We are an isolated island that actually does not have the same resources as other states. Making sure that we can keep more local lands for our local families, similar to what they did in New Zealand, and fighting for local ownership. This is what people need, is that we do not want to be pushed out by foreign investors. We want to make sure that there are more local families here for generations to come.
Thank you. Governor?
You know, the big idea that I like is 100% clean renewable energy and a carbon neutral economy by 2045. It already is making waves. You know, I've joined the U.S. Climate Alliance because I believe, as Andrea said, that Trump is wrong and we need to take action on climate change now. You know, I'm proud of our commitment. We have business accelerators like the Elemental Accelerator that is creating and looking at innovative new startup businesses that we are supporting. They are finding the solutions of the future that will allow us to achieve our clean energy and zero carbon future, which will be transformative to the state of Hawaii.
All right, and while we're on big ideas and what could be big changes, we'll spend just about 15 seconds on this one for real quick yeses or nos. Many states have made a lot of money taxing things like lotteries, gambling, and marijuana. I'd like to ask each of you, would you support legalization of recreational marijuana, gambling, or lottery? A yes or no to each. Governor Ige.
I'm opposed to gambling of any sort and the lottery. I do believe that the benefits generated does not exceed the harm that would occur to our community. And I am against recreational marijuana. I do believe that our laws, state and federal laws, have to be consistent. As long as marijuana is a controlled substance, then it cannot be recreational.
Thank you. And give Representative about the same amount of time he took. Legalization of recreational marijuana, gambling, and or lottery.
I support the medical use of cannabis. And I do believe that some communities across the state are begging for help with abundant drug use and that we need to address that seriously. So I would oppose the recreational use of marijuana. In our community, similarly, in regards to gambling, we've had to face lots of gambling rooms that are actually changing the face of our community and attracting more crime into areas where there are elderly. So I would oppose gambling.
And lottery?
Same.
Okay, thank you. All right, we have some more questions from our viewers. First, from Kaleo Warfield on the Big Island. He says, many companies, even utilities in Hawaii, have a monopoly when it comes to business, and that adds to our cost of living. Is more competition possible in Hawaii? And if so, how will you make more competition happen? And on this, we'll start with Governor Ige.
You know, we have a proceeding before the Public Utilities Commission that is asking them to define a new business model for the electric utilities that really separates generation from distribution and delivering electrical service to our community. This has resulted in tremendous competition for the ability to to generate, especially clean renewable energy projects. So I do believe that this is an essential part of our commitment to 100% clean renewable energy moving forward, that this is one way that we can insert competition into the electric utility and see tremendous results in diversifying our economy and creating more jobs.
Thank you. Representative.
You know, just recently I was approached by a local business that wanted to actually initiate some contracts in regards to renewable energy. But they stated that the RFP that was put out was 700 pages, much larger than any local company could handle and get involved with. And so many local businesses can't compete when the only entities that we have are looking for huge projects. I would be in favor of working with our local energy companies to make sure that more local companies can get online in regards to renewable energies, because sky's the limit. There's so much that we can do right now in regards to renewable energy, and our state is actually cutting edge when it comes to this.
Thank you. Another viewer has a question that affects many drivers, especially on Oahu and many parts of the neighbor islands: traffic. Do you think that it's a good idea to have participating employers stagger work hours to ease congestions on our roads? Representative Tupola.
I think staggering work hours would be good. I think also making sure that perhaps those who are working within the government departments can opt to work near their home, as we have various parts of DOE located throughout the state. I also think we should have a real conversation with the University of Hawaii. As you know, in the fall we have more students than in the spring, and so we could possibly talk about differentiating the class times and creating more public transportation for the students that are traversing from West Oahu all the way into Manoa.
Thank you. Governor Ige?
Yeah. Yes, I really do believe and support telework. We need to look at staggering hours. We need to look at how we can manage our employees in a different way to allow us to reduce traffic all across the state. I do support staggered work hours. I do support telework and having people work at home. As you know, we've been making significant investments in IT infrastructure all across the state, moving services within internal services to the cloud, which would really facilitate individuals working from home. And we don't have to worry about the process of monitoring productivity, because online we can be exactly certain about when they got on, how much work they've done, and what they're able to complete.
Thank you. All right, we have another round of questions from the candidates to each other. Governor Ige, you will pose this first of these questions, no longer than 30 seconds to ask. Representative Tupola, you'll have 1 minute to respond, and Governor Ige, a 30-second rebuttal if you choose. Governor Ige.
Yes. Andrea, you've voted against most of our efforts to keep Hawaii safe from gun violence by voting against bills to take guns away from mentally ill and convicted stalkers, and voting against participating in the federal background checks. In light of this, what is your position on the Young versus Hawaii case?
Specifically in regards to the background checks, it was actually the RAT back, which is actually not just for background checks, it's for criminals across the United States. Secondly, when we talked about the mental health part of gun checking, the reality is that the language of that bill was not specific enough to make sure that it was actually going to take guns out of the hands of those who were seriously mentally ill. The repercussions of us passing something like that really violates the Second Amendment. And so us making sure that actually right now in the books we have the strictest gun laws in the country is making sure to find the balance between the two, because that's really what the people of Hawaii want, is to have all of their voices heard, so that there's a balance of us making sure that there's safety, but that there's a reasonable amount of check and not an excessive amount that is actually not directly related to safety, because the RAT back isn't related to safety, it's related to criminals.
Thank you. The Young versus Hawaii decision was about an appeals court deciding that Hawaii's laws against open carry is unconstitutional, and I'm opposed to that law and want to make sure that we appeal it all the way to the Supreme Court if necessary. And just to be clear, we are fortunate that I was able to sign those measures because it does create a safer community, even if Andrea voted against them.
Representative, your question for the governor.
For all 4 years of your administration, you received an F grade in fiscal accountability on a national nonpartisan report. The governors who raised the most taxes and spent the most got the lowest grades. In the past 4 years, your administration left almost $500 million of federal funds on the table, whether it was you disagreed or you guys didn't spend it down or whether we just didn't apply for it at all. How can the people of Hawaii trust you with their money for the next 4 years?
You know, Andrea, I'd like to see that list of $500 million that we left on the table, because we did not leave any dollars on the table. In fact, our efforts to reduce the backlog in transportation ended up in us getting rewarded by an additional $41 million last year, and we're in line for another bonus because we've been effective in implementing sound financial policies. I want to be clear that I put in place very strict and good financial policies, setting targets for reserves so well, in fact, that Moody's Analytics have scored the state very high in its ability to withstand the next financial meltdown. You know, our bond rating has been improved and upgraded to the highest level ever in the history of the state of Hawaii because of sound financial management programs. And I've saved the taxpayers of Hawaii more than $2 billion by taking active control of taxpayer funds.
You know, it's unfortunate that you forgot that we lost $30 million of NAHASDA funds, specifically for Department of Hawaiian Homelands, for an agency that desperately needs to house Hawaiians. We also only received about $270,000 in Medicaid educational reimbursements, while other states received $30 million. We haven't been fighting actively for the amount of COFA funds that we need, and we also haven't spent down the adequate amount of funds in our transportation division. So yes, we've gotten more, but the reality is that we've left so much on the table that we continue to talk about raising taxes instead of talking about the efficiencies of us utilizing the funds that other states are freely applying for.
And that wraps up the questions the candidates have for each other. And we'll head over to Howard Dashevsky once more to hear from the Lieutenant Governor candidates. Howard.
Thank you very much, Gina. Yeah, back here once again with Senator Josh Green and Marissa Kern. The first question is something that you both are very uniquely aware of. You as an emergency room physician, again, you as a small business person, you see this, you face it together from different angles. It's about health care costs. And of course, we know that health care costs are rising, especially for our kapuna. What is it that you propose to help residents in the islands deal with that rising cost? And Ms. Kearns, we begin with you on that question.
My concern is about the home care operators. What's going on right now, they're being charged by the case management like $600-700 a month. They get paid by the state. Okay, the operators get paid like $2,300. The case management will charge them about $600-700. And I need to know what entails that $600-700 for that being an administrator. And I don't know who set that up, but I think there's a lot of money that's just like falling down the, somewhere that the state should look at. And that's why if we get elected, I really want to be an inspector general. I will go ahead and check every single pennies from the taxpayer that goes to our government. And that's the problem. There's no transparency. I think we can save a lot of millions of dollars.
Dr. Green.
As a physician, I've been caring for the individuals that need that health care all across our state. We have the #1 ranking for health in the country. Still, we spend $2 billion on Medicaid, a very small percentage. 3.6% of our Medicaid recipients consume 61% of the health care dollars. And I have a plan already on the table that can reduce that cost as much as 43%, which could save us over $400 million. So my expertise as a health policymaker and as a physician has come together in this area so that we can actually send some tax monies back to our people while delivering better care to our patients across the state.
All right, so medical care being one great concern when it comes to the high cost of living here. Give me other ideas that you might have to help residents with the high costs. I know you've touched on a few of them already, but if you had to maybe go down the line, points 2, 3, and 4, what ideas to help satisfy and help the high cost of living? We begin with you, Senator.
Well, I'd like to expand on what I would do for homeless and the chronic homeless problem. The H4 project, which I've been proposing and working with colleagues, hygiene, health care, working on medical respite, and then long-term housing. The moment we put a roof over someone's head, their costs drop 43 to 73%. By implementing strategies like this that I have familiarity with, are both compassionate to take care of people and to put taxpayer dollars back into the system so we can afford education, so we can afford medications for our seniors, so that we can afford pre-K education. This is the kind of approach I've been proposing. There's a lot of ways that we can bring money back into the most important and essential services that we've been missing over the years.
Ms. Curtin.
To me, I don't know if you guys are familiar with our state. We became a sanctuary state. and there are about like 40,000 illegal aliens living in our state. Just look at our DMV office. Look how long the lines are, right? That's number one, okay? Who's taking all our homes, our rental homes? Isn't it those guys? Who's housing them? Who's paying for their health care, okay? Ige signed that. This guy voted for it too. So, this guy's been there in office for what? 14 years, him, and Ige is 34. It's 48 years. And they just keep piling and piling all this disaster and crisis in our state, okay? We got shipping monopoly, right? We got like this, something like the rail. Why can't we stop the rail? Now all islands gonna have to pay. They extend the tax for the rail. That's gotta stop. I need to audit the rail.
All right, and I need to stop you there. I apologize. We do have a 10 o'clock newscast that we want to hit. Final question is, traditionally, the lieutenant governor's position has been utilized as a potential stepping stone to other opportunity. Where, if anywhere, do you see yourself, politically speaking, 4 years from now, should you be elected to this position?
I would just like to earn the honor of serving with dignity, respecting everyone in the state. As a physician, lieutenant governor, I will commit myself to supporting our governor in every which way is necessary to solve the problems for our families, but also I'll be in the trenches. I'll still be a doc taking care of homeless individuals, taking care of the chronically sick, taking care of our kapuna and keiki. I think a person of action is what I want to be. I don't have aspirations beyond these 4 years. It's been the honor of a lifetime to be a senator for 10 years and a rep for 4 and a doctor in our community, and that's really enough for me right now.
Ms. Kearns, and if you and Ms. Tupolo are victorious in November, where do you see yourself in 4 years?
Well, in 4 years, beside serving as a lieutenant governor, I would like to be, I'm serious, I would like to be an inspector general, because all the taxpayers' money are going to the waste. That's why we need to drain the swamp. These guys are abusers. They're just there to pretty much protect their cronies, the government cronies. Every 2 years, these guys got like millions of dollars for campaign monies for those cronies. So this like the train, the rail, so these guys will continue drain the taxpayers. And I am serious. I told the people, I'm here for you. I put them first before me and my family, because there's so many people living in our state, and these guys don't care. Again, he's been here for like, what, 14 years, and Ige is like, what, 34 years? 48 years, 5 decades, nothing gets done.
And I'm going to stop you there, because we're going to give you an opportunity now to have one final statement, so you can take anything that you've taken notes or heard tonight. Your final statement before we say aloha tonight, and we begin with you.
I'm here for the people of Hawaii. I am fighting for you. I live here 31 years. I am a mother. I am a business owner, and I'm in the shipping business. We need to get rid of Jones Act. This Congress representative of Hawaii, they need to work their okole. They have no pono. They're not helping our people. They're killing us. Our people are leaving the islands. Our education is 43rd in the nation. And again, there's so many bankruptcies right now filing. It's surging. Look at the rail. The rail just like piling billions of dollars over there. That needs to be audited. I can't wait. I can't wait somebody get audited with that rail. And again, this is not a false alarm, okay? And I know my password is to fire Ige and Josh Green. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Green, your final thoughts.
Thank you. I would like to say again, first, thank you for sharing your evening with us. It's been the honor of a lifetime to serve in Hawaii with the National Health Corps, to be a physician on Big Island, to be with people in their most challenging moments and help their children or their kapuna family members when they've had a healthcare crisis. And it's through those experiences where I've learned what we need. I've learned to fight to make sure everyone has healthcare coverage in our state. I've learned what it means to be poor in our communities on the neighbor islands and how to fight for a living wage and a better wage. I've learned to see that it can't be all conflict with people, that it has to be partnership. And I'm ready to be a partner for Governor Ige. Again, thank you so much for your support. I'd be honored to be your lieutenant governor as a physician and an LG.
Senator Green, Ms. Kern, thank you very much. Thank you for the roles that you play as a doctor, as a small businesswoman, and your willingness to step up and put yourself in this position as a public servant. Thank you very much. Gina, that wraps it up from back here. We now send it to you back in the studio for your final thoughts and questions.
Thank you, Howard, and thank you, Senator Green and Ms. Kearns. All right, so we're now going to turn to the closing statements of the governor candidates. Each of you will have 1 minute, and we'll start with Representative Tupola.
I'm so thankful to be here tonight, and I hope that the people of Hawaii were able to hear that I wasn't giving political rhetoric. For me, this is not a career. I wouldn't have run for governor if I didn't feel like it was absolutely necessary to do this right now, at this time, at this point in my life. We cannot solve the systemic issues of our state with the same mindset in which they were created. This will be the first time that the people will be able to vote for somebody that truly works for the people, not for special interest groups, not for the establishment, not for political insiders. And I've been showing that across the state as I've gone into rural communities on every single island multiple times to let the people know that I'm here to listen and that I'm here to serve them. Not make programs for them, but with them. The direction of Hawaii right now is one that is pushing local families out. We cannot afford another 4 years of this current administration. We need to change the trajectory of Hawaii so that more local families can stay here for generations to come. And I'm committed to working for you.
Thank you. Governor Ige.
Mahalo for the chance to talk about some important issues that are at stake on November 6th. You know, this election, you will have the choice of whether or not to continue with my administration's record of progress in constructing more than 5,300 homes with more on the way, air conditioning 1,300 classrooms all across the state, for reducing homelessness for 2 consecutive years for the first time in many. You know, I am proud, and there are clear differences between myself and my opponent. You know, I have taken on the Trump administration in their going backwards in affordable health care, in immigration, and most importantly, in reproductive rights. You know, I'm committed to ensuring that our values, the values that we share here in the islands as a community, can continue on in the future. I appreciate and hope and ask for your support on November 6th.
Thank you very much. And that brings us to the end of tonight's debate. Thank you, candidates, for your participation. We'll post this entire debate on our website at khon2.com. Also, join us on khon2.com tomorrow for a special debate on the constitutional amendment for an education surcharge. KHON2 is partnering with Common Cause Hawaii to hear arguments from both sides. That live forum is tomorrow at 3 p.m., live streamed on khon2.com. Be sure to vote and stay with KHON2 on election night, Tuesday, November 6th. We'll have updates as all the results come out. Stay with us now for the KHON2 News at 10. Mahalo and good night.